Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to dive into the usual things, but before we do, let's check in with Alex and see how you're doing, buddy. How's things over there?
Hey man, things are great actually. Looking forward to the week, looking forward to everything that's ahead. Not really looking forward to check the markets today because I don't want to say it's boring, but it's like accumulation is always a little boring, you know. For some reason, crypto people always want big movements, most likely upwards movements. But yeah, currently it looks like we are moving within a range of 80 to 90. I remember like 3 days ago, Bitcoin was struggling to get above 88. Today it was down to 81, and people always panic. It's always the same, and you know the sentiment gets bad. And man, whenever I see, I mean, I try to avoid looking on my timeline, but yeah, it's crazy how people react the same way all the time once the price goes down a little bit because they're not able to cope with that situation. And it's just a range. Bitcoin is just moving within a range. I'm not sure if the big black swan whatever event happens, because people claim it's going down to 68.
Mhm.
If that happens, we get a good opportunity to buy more. But yeah, I don't know. The sentiment overall is still bad. What do you see?
It's more or less the same thing. There's definitely a consolidation period happening right now. I think that what's happening broader on a broader spectrum is that, Bitcoin is becoming more obvious. I think Bitcoin is just becoming the increasingly obvious play for most people, just obviously due to the strategic Bitcoin reserve announcement, or at least the announcement that the U.S. is going to be accumulating Bitcoin, the announcement that, more and more companies are going to accumulate Bitcoin, like GameStop, for example. MicroStrategy continues to accumulate. We've got the ETFs. We've got larger investors who've started to accumulate, and they're doing this stuff quietly for the most part. So I think people are starting to see it, at least people who are paying attention to markets. And they're kind of throwing off all the other sort of tokens and feature coins and that sort of thing. So again, like you can buy Bitcoin, which is going to be a store of value, or you can buy, feature tokens like ETH or Solana or whatever. And these are going to be based on their use cases in the world. So for me personally, I think the average person will start dipping their toe into Bitcoin this cycle. I think it's already started to happen, given the fact that we've got so much news around crypto now, at least on the mainstream media. And, the other tokens will be, what they are, which is basically dependent upon what the organizations that run them can build. It'll be more like investing into a company. So I think that's where we're going. We're going to continue to see more consolidation around quality assets. You'll see more and more trash fall away. Meme coins, for example, have dropped off a cliff, obviously. And, everyone knew that was going to happen anyway. But that same thing's going to happen to all of these feature coins, these tens of thousands of feature coins that basically do nothing. So I'm actually excited for it because, having a few top tier assets to focus on makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, I want to open up the conversation with a quote or a tweet actually from our good friend Peter Schiff. And I'm not sure if you saw the post already, but 5 hours ago he posted, MicroStrategy now holds 528,000 Bitcoin that it purchased at an average price of 67,000. With Bitcoin at 82,000, MicroStrategy has an unrealized gain of just 22%. Each time Saylor bought Bitcoin, had he just bought gold instead, the total unrealized gain would be far greater. How about them apples? What do we say about that?
I think it's kind of funny to watch Peter Schiff turn himself inside out to make arguments against Bitcoin because, the truth is, like, he's been on the precious metals bandwagon for a long time. And I used to actually, I had money with one of his companies. I used to invest with one of his brokerages. And, I've listened to his podcast. I listened to him a lot over the years. I think he has a good sound understanding of economics. But when it comes to Bitcoin, I think he's just blind and he's basically drawn a line in the sand and has decided that he's going to go down with this ship. I mean, while Bitcoin continues to be adopted, he continues to run it down. So, I mean, if you take a snapshot of anything, like at any point in time, you can literally compare apples to oranges to pears to bananas and make it look like whatever you think is best is best. And, the truth is, like, if you're MicroStrategy, you're not trading Bitcoin, you're accumulating Bitcoin as part of a treasury strategy. And if that treasury strategy means that you're not here to look for tops and bottoms, in other words, buys and sells, that you're literally acquiring Bitcoin forever and always, which is MicroStrategy's strategy, then what MicroStrategy is doing is sticking to their particular targets and goals. And so we can pick that apart and say, okay, well, Bitcoin's down, they're not doing that great. Let's compare Bitcoin to gold. I mean, but the truth is, like, if you're buying gold over the last decade or two, I think I started buying gold when it was, I don't know, $800 or $900 an ounce, and today it's $2,900 an ounce, if I remember correctly. So it's basically tripled in the last 15, 16, 17 years. Bitcoin's done that same time frame, has done many, many hundreds of multiples on top of gold. So I mean, if we just snapshot it and like cherry pick our timeline, we can make it look like, oh, gold would be the better investment. But the truth is, gold hasn't moved much at all. Silver hasn't moved as much at all, and both of these precious metals have been projected to move many, many thousands of dollars in one direction or another. And then when it doesn't, everybody cries foul and says the markets are manipulated, and they keep selling and bringing the price down and blah blah blah. So you can't really do that with Bitcoin unless you're a holder like Saylor, and we know Saylor's not selling. So I think again, this is just cherry picking a timeline, excuse me, and making that timeline serve your own means. So it's just more Peter Schiff. He's just blind to what's happening right now.
Yeah, but you said that you feel like he has a pretty good understanding of economics. But if you look at Bitcoin, for example, and you see it going from 16 or 20 or 25 to 110,000 US dollars within like 2 years or 3 years, and like it actually went like from 60 to 110 within half a year. I mean, it looks parabolic on the time frame, on the big time frame. I just don't get it. Like, how can he justify that, what he says for himself? Because it obviously doesn't make sense. And especially like comparing what MicroStrategy does, and comparing that to gold. Obviously, MicroStrategy bought a lot of Bitcoin lately for higher prices, but they expect it to go a lot higher. That's why they do that, and that's obviously why their current unrealized gain has gotten lower and lower lately. But Saylor does this because he is convinced of Bitcoin, and he's obviously very confident in what he does. So when you say Peter Schiff got a good understanding of economics, do you think he actually believes what he writes?
I think right now he's protecting his ego and his personal reputation. I think he is just basically decided he's going to, die on this particular hill. He's going to keep, downplaying the effect that Bitcoin has had in the world, and continue to espouse what he has, which is that Bitcoin is a bubble, that it's going to zero and all this other kind of stuff. And I mean, the truth is, like, when you look at his tweet, it's very disingenuous, because when you say, like you're talking about, I think MicroStrategy holds 528,000 Bitcoin purchased for an average price of 67,000. Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those situations where you're absolutely right. Like, if you purchase, if you're dollar cost averaging your purchases and you're buying at higher prices, which is all you can do right now while Bitcoin is above 80,000, and I think MicroStrategy even bought into the 90s, it's going to drive your average cost up. That doesn't mean that the Bitcoin that MicroStrategy bought for 15,000 or 20,000 has suddenly lost its value, right? We're talking about averages here, and the average gain you know, has nothing to do with like the real impact of what you can do with Bitcoin or, you know, whatever asset you're holding in the long run. So again, comes back to, you know, sort of targets and goals here. What's MicroStrategy's goal? Well, their goal is to acquire Bitcoin until the end of time. And so if they can acquire Bitcoin when it's high, when it's low, you know, when it's steady, when it's doing whatever it's doing and still have an average gain, I think that's a positive sign for Bitcoin and a positive sign for their strategy. So at the end of the day, you know, time will tell who's right and who's wrong. But Peter Schiff does understand markets. I mean, he does have a good grasp of Austrian economics, which is the school that I tend to follow, because I've heard him espouse those concepts, you know, 1,000 times. But when it comes to Bitcoin, he's just dug his heels in the sand and he said, you know, I'm not going to change my mind. And until, you know, we're 5, 10, 15 years down the road and the proof is completely evident to all parties, I don't see him changing his mind anytime soon. But I think what he's doing is he's making it increasingly difficult for him to ever change his viewpoint by continuing to espouse this nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be fun to watch what he posts and how he justifies Bitcoin going up once it reaches 100K and everything above again. But one more thing I noticed recently, I feel like it's been a little different in the past, but recently I noticed that crypto people, when they check the markets and when they try to forecast crypto prices, they tend to have a closer look to the traditional markets than they used to have, because obviously we got Trump, and you know, these days a single tweet from Trump is enough to trigger like global nervousness. We got the tariffs obviously on car imports recently. He also kind of escalated his like when he spoke about Iran and Russia. I think he said that he was kind of pissed off from Putin. You know, people. I think I read that if no deal on Ukraine is reached, that he is threatening tariffs of, I don't know, 25 to 40 or 50% on Russian oil. And yeah, all these news, I think there are also like possible threats again, bomb threats against Iran. So I think all these kind of things did not matter in the past, on like especially regarding crypto markets. And I feel like people are a lot watching traditional markets a lot closer these days, because when I open my timeline, I see a lot of people that are looking at pre-markets. For example, how is Nasdaq moving, S&P 500, how do they move, and what can we expect from Bitcoin? Do you feel like this is something that changed this cycle?
Which part specifically?
Yeah, because I feel like if you look at 2021, or if you look at 2017, people did not look at traditional markets in order to get an idea of where crypto could go.
Oh, you're talking about the correlation between the two specifically?
Exactly, yeah. And how did it change over time, especially with this cycle?
Yeah, I don't really know that it has. I think all that's happened is that traditional market players have moved more into the non-traditional spaces. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot where, you know, you can have a double digit gain in crypto in a day, or even a triple digit gain in crypto in a day. And, you know, you had early adopters coming into the space playing playing the NFT meme coin featured token game, trading this and trading that, and, you know, trying to make their money. And it was only a matter of time before, you know, traditional investors started gambling a little bit as well. And then, of course, now that we've got more mainstream funds, ETFs, organizations, businesses buying it, it just makes sense that more people from the traditional space would start to take a look at it. So I think what's happening is you have more of a population of traditional investor moving to the non-traditional space, which is sort of overriding the activity of the typical degen that lived in the space before. And, the DGen will continue to become a smaller and smaller percentage of what happens. But I mean, when you have a large, deep market, one with, lots of volume, one with lots of options, money flows to where it's treated best. And in this case of crypto, where you have markets that are constantly open 24/7, they never close, many options, many builders, many ideas, it only makes sense that over time the trash falls by the wayside, and that includes people as well. Like there's a lot of people in the space who just did evil things to steal from people. It only makes sense that these people get further and further from the mainstream of what's happening in the space. So I don't know that there's a correlation outside of that, and the fact that all markets sort of trend toward quality, and people who've been burned 1,000 times generally leave markets, and degens find out that they're not welcome in all these markets, and they start to their population start to shrink as well. So I think that's all that's really happening. It's just becoming more of a real market rather than the Wild West.
Yeah, absolutely. But we gotta say that the focus on the US president regarding crypto has never been that big. I mean, in 2016, when Trump ran for the first time, I don't think everyone, because these days it looks like, I think I just read a tweet actually that Trump is scheduled to speak at did it say 5:30 p.m. today. Expect Bitcoin volatility, and that's crazy because over the past couple of weeks, whenever Trump opened his mouth, crypto people were like, please mention Bitcoin, please, please, please. And I think the focus has never been like so big on a US president and what he says, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's true. But again, with the traditional players coming into the non-traditional markets, they will bring those ideas, right? They bring all of their habits, they bring all their trading habits, they bring all of their psychological expectations into the space. So if, there's this, sort of meme put out into the world that, the human monkey grasps onto and says, okay, well, if the president speaks, Bitcoin's supposed to move, be ready for volatility. Like if they start planting this seed, right, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because again, humans are just hairless monkeys. I mean, it's not like, the average person is extra smart. It's just that they're either paying attention or they're not. And if all they pay attention to is a headline, then they're probably going to miss, what's really underneath it, which is maybe Trump says something negative about Bitcoin and it drops $5,000 for 2 minutes. Well, if it drops $5,000, I'm going to be buying. I don't really care what Trump says, because Trump can't delete Bitcoin. There's no delete button on the thing. So unless that happens, I'm hoping and praying that it drops down. Like if Bitcoin dropped to $10,000 a token today, I would be in fucking heaven, because I would just be accumulating as much as I possibly could. Same thing of Solana. Like if Solana dropped down to $8 again, I'd be in heaven. I'd just buy it up, because again, it's not going anywhere. There's no way that a politician can hit a permanent delete button. Can there be disruptions? Absolutely. Anything can disrupt any market. But again, we're just talking about timelines on the long tail of history here. Markets trend upward. Wealth creates more wealth. There's no limit to the pie. We just grow the pie bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you understand how money moves and how wealth is created, then, it's an opportunity no matter which way the market goes.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Maybe one last thing about US politics that I read today is, maybe I'll find the post. Where was it? Oh, right here. Okay. So amidst all these escalations, Trump is referring to a Liberation Day on April 2, a day on which the US apparently plans some sort of symbolic reckoning against countries that do not align with US interests. What is the Liberation Day? How come I heard of it for the first time?
Yeah, I couldn't really tell you. I saw some little headline, but I didn't even look at it, because again, it just looked like political speak to me. At the end of the day, the headline is almost always wrong, and few people read past them. So I'm one of those people that if I haven't read past the headline, I don't really have an opinion. Probably the last two paragraphs of the article are where the actual information is, and I haven't had a moment to dive into that yet. But I mean, it sounds like from what you've told me and from what little bit I've garnered, is it this just some sort of, like extension of the olive branch? It's like, okay, let's have a little conversation here and see what we can get done together. But aside from that, I don't really think it's much more than symbolism over substance.
Oh, okay, so Liberation Day is not actually a thing in the United States.
Not that I'm aware of, no. But I mean, again, I could be wrong. So, don't take my word for it.
Just a Californian thing, I think.
Well, Californians are still burning Teslas today. They had, what was it, like a Tesla protest day or something, and it's been there's lots of videos cropping up of these people who are half informed about everything, but have an opinion on everything. So there's massive protests going on, I think, in Southern California right now against Tesla, and they organized this, I think, online, and there's been a lot of speculation around who's behind the protest, but that's really what's been taking up the headlines today because it's been more controversial, obviously.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Just like 2 days ago, I spoke to a guy who owns Tesla, whatever Model Y, I think, and I talked to him and I was like, "How do you feel about about the situation of Tesla right now and people are hating and everything?" And he was actually concerned that whenever he parks his car somewhere, that he gets back and people have damaged it in some way. And that's crazy, man. I feel like, I mean, I've seen the videos from the United States where people go totally crazy. Um, but man, it's cars. Leave them alone, right?
Well, it's beyond cars, man. It's just sheer stupidity. I saw an interview. Some guy
Yeah.
was walking the street and he interviewed a couple. The woman was from Israel and the man was from the UK, and they married and they moved to the US, I don't know, several decades ago. And the woman was just commenting on how stupid the protesters were and how ridiculous it was that, just last year they're praising the technology and praising the man who helped create the technology. But today they're, burning the technology, the very technology that actually helps accomplish, what would traditionally be considered a leftist goal, right? And she just went on and on and on about how idiotic and ridiculous these people were being because their arguments make no sense. And the interviewer was going around to different people in the crowd. And of course, when he would ask a rational question, they would respond with insults and curse words because they have no argument. I mean, literally what they're doing and the way that they think is just a form of brainwashing. They have no argument. They have no real rationale or reason behind what they're doing other than that they read a headline and they're upset. And they hate Trump and they hate Musk. And aside from that, nothing else matters. So as long as their hatred is prioritized over, effectiveness, then they get bad publicity. They get bad results. And all they're doing really is solidifying the fact that the left is considered to be, mentally unaware and mentally compromised right now. No one who's thinking rationally thinks that these people are, doing anything worthy of their time or anything worthy of anyone else's time. They're just destroying. And it takes zero creativity, to show up with no answer to a problem and continue to destroy. And then, of course, these two people were immigrants. And of course, the people who claimed to be for immigrants were shouting them down and yelling at them and screaming at them and trying to talk over them. The whole nine. It's a typical spoiled child mentality that you see in so many people who are on that far left spectrum. And it's really sad to see because, again, I'm on Team America and we should all want to win together. And you know what? If you don't like the way things are, propose a solution that actually is effective. Burning stuff, hurting people, harming property, damaging other people's lives financially or even through destruction of their property is not effective, and it only makes you look like an asshole. So all they're doing is making the other side stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually so sad to hear. I mean, gosh, humanity. That kind of reminds me of people who protest against like climate change, when they block streets and Also, like, didn't they try to damage like paintings in the Louvre? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's like crazy. They think that's the way to get attention, but they do it the whole wrong way, and obviously harming paintings. What can, like, dude, Picasso, what did he do to the climate change? So yeah, I don't know, but it feels like it won't change. Like, you cannot educate everyone, and we will go through that over and over and over again, just like the topics are going to change.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the truth is, like, most people are reasonable people if you can get them one on one, and you can just demonstrate,
Yeah.
listen, let's have a conversation. Anyone who really is curious about knowing what's going on will actually have a conversation and ask some form of question, especially if it's one on one. Because when it's one on one, there's a lot of things happening in that dynamic that's not happening when it's a crowd versus one person or a crowd versus two people. There's a great quote. I forget who said it, but it's like something to the effect of never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers. And like when you get together, there's a crowd mentality that's not present when you're an individual. And when the crowd mentality takes over, people do things they wouldn't necessarily do if they were by themselves. Because now the responsibility, the fear of physical harm is real. In a crowd, it's not so much. You can kind of hide in that. And so, people who are weak get together in crowds with other people and they do bad things because that they basically know that, there's nothing that they can really be held accountable for. And that's really sad to see, because at the end of the day, we want a population of people who are responsible for their actions. And in the case of this particular experience, I'm just realizing we haven't said anything about NFTs, but in the case of this particular experience, like if you look at the hypocrisy of the people who are interviewed, like one guy being interviewed is living off of his investments. He's an investment guy, but he's somehow has a problem with capitalism. And then, they're interviewing someone else and they're talking about capitalism, this, capitalism, that. And people forget capitalism is not a form of government. Capitalism is just free exchange. It's like two people come together and they agree to do a thing. Like you and I get together, we agree to do a thing. I agree to sell you something. You agree to give me something in exchange. And then we go on about our business. It's just free exchange. That's all it is. And, to argue against that form of freedom is just sheer stupidity. And, a lot of people who really want to make difference in the world, like even I think of U2, I think of Bono, and one of the comments he made when he was trying to make a difference in Africa. He was talking about, the best way to make a difference is to bring business and industry into the country and to create more fair exchange and free exchange between humanity. Because when people can interact freely, they generally do what's in their best interest, which generally creates better outcomes for both parties. But when you inject a third party, like a government third party that says you have to do things a certain way, then all of that becomes a bastardized form of capitalism. And we don't have capitalism in the US. We have a managed economy, just like every other country has a managed economy. It's just levels of it. So, when you get past the hypocrisy of the people who make their money, as the result of capitalism, or people who are recording their insults and yelling at people on devices that were created as the result of capitalism, it just, the whole thing falls apart. So, until we can get to the point where, people want to actually have some sort of understanding that what's happening today may be painful or it may be pleasurable, but the question is, what does it generate for the future? And so if we have to take cuts today, or if we have to, pay the price today, the question is, what can we gain in the future? And is the price of the future worth what we're paying today? And so many Americans saw the direction that the country would be in 5, 10, 15 years from now and said enough. And that's why, the left, who has had its way for basically the last 2 decades, they're just acting like spoiled children because that's the way they got their way in the past. They just screamed, and whoever screamed the loudest got their way. That's not the way the world works.
Do you think that all that Trump is doing right now is in order to get a better future in 5 to 10 years?
I do, yeah. Absolutely do. And then this is part of my personal philosophy. We carry this through our family. We do this inside Goodfellas as well. Like everything that we're doing is a vote for the future that we want to create. And we've had a government that was overspending, wasting money, defrauding individuals, funding political campaigns, importing voters, doing its best to maintain power structures, and pay people who are really not worth what they're being paid. And this is just being exposed now. Everyone pretty much knew this was going on, but now it's just being exposed. And the only way to get to a place where government is shrunk, has less impact on your daily lives, is to get rid of that and to shrink it and to bring it under control. And we can have a much better future if we have something that we can basically sort of keep under wraps and make sure that the people, again, another typical leftist concept is there's power to the people, man. Well, it's been power to the government for the last who knows how long. And if you're defunding government agencies and getting rid of government agencies, this is how you give power back to the people. And the people who generally shout that don't understand that when you have power, you have to have some form of responsibility. Meaning you need to get up off your ass. You need to stop playing video games in your mom's basement. You need to be productive. You need to create, right? You need to get out into the world and do something with yourself. And that's the part that, this crowd generally misses.
Yeah, I feel like a video game every now and then is fine. But I generally agree. I wonder regarding the government if they are actually as free as they claim to be, because recently we got the Kennedy files revealed, and I feel like the information we've gotten are not new. Like I feel like I don't know if you've seen the video where Trump is being asked, like, hey, okay, just like we got 80,000 pages of files basically leaked now, or not leaked, but revealed. Who killed Kennedy? And he was like, it was not my job to tell you guys who killed them. I told you guys I'll open the files for everyone, for the public. Do with it whatever you want. And I feel like the information we got are, because in my honest opinion, I feel like we will never ever see the Epstein files, for example, because like let's be honest, the Kennedy thing is like, when did he die? Like 60 years ago or
in the
50?
60s.
I don't know. Yeah, the people who are involved in the Epstein files and the Epstein case, these guys are probably still people in charge, people in powerful positions, and I feel like Trump cannot do whatever he wants,
No, obviously not. I mean, he's been blocked on several occasions by the judiciary, which is its role. He's been blocked at local levels. He's been blocked at state levels. And again, this is the way it's set up. The U.S. is 50 different countries under one flag, and every state has its own way of doing things. And that's by design, and that's a good thing, because if you don't like the way it is in one state, you can move to another state and live that way. And so
I just wanted to add, like, it's not just that. I feel like, for example, there are rumors or conspiracies or whatever that the CIA is involved in the Kennedy assassination, and I feel like we've had an assassination attempt on Trump, and I feel like people tend to forget that, and it's not like long ago. So I'm not sure if Trump feels secure, if he did that, if he actually announced that he would release the Epstein files, for example, or the Diddy files or whatever,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I'm sure he's had multiple attempts, actually. I'm sure he's, being much more cautious now, as is Elon. Elon feels fearful based on what he said on the Rogan podcast. And, I'm sure these guys are having to put a lot of thought into what it is that they're doing. And I think that shows a lot of strength of character. You know what I mean? Like, in the face of challenge, if you stick to your guns, that's character, and it shows integrity. And, just like with Goodfellas, it's like we could go out and we could do the typical hype and horseshit thing, or we could stick to our value system and try to find collectors and try to create the best artwork and code that we possibly can. There's easier ways to do what we're doing, but we're not doing it the easy way because the easy way doesn't get us where we want to be in the long run. And this is why I feel like, Trump and Elon, hate toward Trump and Elon goes against everything liberal. And I mean, when I say that, I mean a liberal in the classical sense, not in the leftist authoritarian sense, but like in the liberal classical sense, of freedom and responsibility and personal and self-determination. Like everything that they're doing is trying to push us that way. Now, is it perfect? Of course not. Nothing is going to be perfect. Is it painless? No, of course not. Growth is never painless. You'll never feel weaker than you feel when you start working out. You feel weak when you start. You'll never feel stupider than when you first start reading about a new concept. Why? Well, you don't know anything about it. You're going to feel like an idiot. And then you have to go through the work of doing the reading, doing the weightlifting, eating the food, whatever the thing is. When you first start, you're going to feel like you're the opposite of the thing that you're trying to create. And then what you get on the other end of the work is the result of doing that work. And so we're going to not see the result of, what's been going on politically and with what's been exposed for years and years and years to come. But if they can at least prosecute the worst offenders, at least cut back on the biggest, holes in government spending, if they can at least shore up some of the data analysis and, find out where some of the money has gone, it's going to be better for everybody. And the fact that people are fighting against this just shows that, man, people really haven't thought this through.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, absolutely. And you build a beautiful bridge to the Goodfellas. So let's jump a little bit into our beautiful little project. I saw plenty of posts from you, plenty of announcements, and I love that you acknowledged every single piece that's been converted to core. What's up there? The Artist Incubator is done, right?
It is. 17 mints, I believe, were completed late last night. So they are completely finished and ready to be distributed. So if you guys have your pieces ready, or if you're getting them ready, go ahead and get them ready. Again, this is going to get us out of the old token mint format, and it's going to get us out of, Floppy Labs jail for those of us who got stuck in Floppy Labs. So all of these things basically continue to advance us forward, and we're absolutely excited to continue to move in that direction.
Absolutely. On top of that, we got our Artist Incubator, and what we will do now is we will let you guys vote which Artist Incubator piece is going to be next. So we will present the artists we currently have, and we will basically have three. Let's drop some alpha for the podcast listeners here. So the first artist who is in the vote is going to be Nam1. You're most likely going to have heard from her of her because we actually announced a Artist Incubator drop from her already. I think, when was it? I think it was December or November last year. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, we had to skip that due to some circumstances. But this piece is still good to go. So her piece will be, you will be able to vote for her. The second artist is going to be Liam Stone. Liam does incredible art. I think I can actually, just check out the Discord. You will see some sample pieces. So he calls himself a surreal artist. So what he does is very, very unique. And when Jason and I saw his art first, I think he actually commented on a post we made and asked if we could collaborate with him. So that was awesome. He's a great guy. I love his efforts. And the piece is awesome. The last one who will be available to vote for is Metalhead. Metalhead is also known in the space. I'm not sure if he is in touch with Jilly, but I think he is, because I think I saw both of them communicating to each other. But Metalhead also got a very, very unique style, glitchy art. If you like cyberpunk art, you will love what he does. You will see some sample art from him in the Discord as well. And this is going to be the final artist for that vote. So you will have three artists whose pieces are ready to be dropped, and your voice will decide which piece will be dropped next. And I think it's actually a pretty cool thing because it kind of takes away the surprise who the artist is, but I think it gives people an expectation of what to expect. And like I said, I love every single piece we have, and single piece will be dropped. But I'm curious to see what the community wants to see first. What about you?
Yeah, same for sure. I think it's interesting because it'll kind of give us also a direction of, what people are looking for that's different and kind of interesting in the marketplace. Because, I mean, honestly, we've seen a lot of female form lately, and as much as I love female form, like any other red-blooded American male, you know, if every piece is female form, it's like, okay, come on, let's let's get a little bit more excited here about doing something slightly different, right? So I'm looking forward to getting some artwork in that's not just female form, or if it is, it's like very, very different. And then also getting back to the 21s with some of our male form and like really elevating that space and really elevating the look of that. So yeah, for sure. I'm curious to see what people think of some of these artists. They're all fantastic in their own right and in their own way. And yeah, we're going to keep bringing people to the forefront and continue to build this gallery just like we said we would, man. It's been quite the journey so far.
Absolutely. And sometimes I imagine me checking the Artist Incubator collection on Magic Eden, maybe in a year or two, and we will have such a great, diverse gallery with so much, like so many different artists, different art. And I think it's unique. I'm not sure if anyone else does that kind of like such a thing. But like I said, we know what's coming next, and the pieces are awesome. I'm not even sure if I sent you the final piece from Liam yet, but yeah, it's great. What else do we have? We got the big RWA drop coming up, and in order to prepare that, and in order to give you guys an idea of what to expect, we will have them on Spaces. We hope that it works out on like next Friday. We'll reach out to them, and yeah, all the questions you have will be answered. Looking forward to that. And I think you are going to be the artist for that, for the art, and you got some great ideas already. I think you've thrown around some ideas in recent Spaces. And yeah, this drop is going to be awesome because again, we will be first movers, RWA, and I think the idea behind it is great because I remember when Jason reached out to us. I think it is actually a long time ago, half a year or something, on Discord, and we had that meeting, and I was like, I'm not sure about trees, and now that I look deeper into it, I think the idea is awesome, and yeah, looking forward to see what the community is going to think about it. And man, couldn't be more hyped. Actually, there's so much going on, right?
There is, yeah. I mean, and this is one of those things where, there's a lot of people talking about RWA, and there's very few people actually doing anything with it. So this is basically a first effort at us doing this in a meaningful way that can actually provide returns. So that to me is, I mean, I think it sort of speaks volumes about what we're about personally, but also about the sort of directive that we have to return value to the community, either through artwork or through some real form of value, not just some plushie that, is going to sit on a shelf somewhere. I mean, that's all cool and I have nothing against that. But, at the end of the day, it's just, it's a plushie. Who cares? It's not a big deal. So I think that getting into the actual business of RWA and tying, what's happening on chain with what's happening in reality is really exciting. Exciting in a way that sort of points to a new direction for companies, stock, investing, dividends, all of the traditional stuff. I think it points to, a foray into that in the world of NFTs.
Yeah, absolutely. And core NFTs are great with that. I mean, you need to that shows again that you need to keep up with the technology in order to move forward. And I love that we are able to basically put the tree. I don't know if it's like a number or whatever, but it will be implemented into the metadata, and you will see that you own your tree on your NFT, and that's awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And this is one of the things that we'll talk about when we have them live. But there's so many opportunities to to create fraud in all marketplaces and all businesses. One of the things that we're trying to do with NFTs or blockchain in general is eliminate that. And so having access to the pieces that exist inside their database and then tying that into ours and making sure that those two are one and the same, that's going to be an interesting conversation that I hope to have with these guys, so that you're factually sure that what the NFT claims to represent actually represents.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that as well. And this should be it for today. I'm sorry, man, wrapping it up quick here, but I'm fucking tired. Do you have anything else?
No, man, go get some rest and have a good week, and we'll catch up on Friday.
Awesome, man. So thank you everyone for listening again. It was a great one, and we look forward to Spaces on Friday. It's always great having you guys there. A lot of people are there almost every week, and we really appreciate that. Great to have you guys. We look forward to that. We look forward to the drops. We look forward to the core NFT standard throughout our whole collection. And we always say that, but the best is yet to come. Have a great week, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.